I'm Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact, focused on personal growth, my workbook series, The Knowledge, will help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in this video, we're going to be talking about, do they think you didn't care?
This is a heartbreaking one.
Yeah, this one does happen, okay? Every situation is different and every breakup is different. And sometimes people will end a relationship because they felt like you didn't really care about them. Maybe you weren't invested in the situation and they were unhappy about it. So we're going to explore some of these ideas here, and it can get a little confusing, so you want to pay attention, okay? Obviously, people can break up with you for a lot of different reasons, okay? You typically think of like fighting and arguing and poor communication or different values, but sometimes people just feel like you don't care about them. But there's a lot of different reasons for that. Yes, some of it can be because of somebody's behavior, but some of it could also be because they have felt not cared about in their life. And those things come up and it has an impact on how they're feeling in the relationship.
And there's usually certain lines that an ex will tell you during the breakup that hints to them thinking that you don't care, or them thinking that you're not invested or want the relationship. So this can sound like them assuming what you're thinking or assuming your beliefs about the relationship.
Like what? What would be some lines we've heard?
One that I've heard recently is, I have to end this because it's not working for you. Or you don't deserve this. You know, assuming what the other person thinks they deserve or don't deserve. They might even outright say, oh, you don't want to date me. You know, it's better that we end this. So there could be phrases like that that hint to, I'm not worthy of this relationship, or I'm making this decision on behalf of you. This is a breakup that you really want, but I'm just allowing the breakup to happen. Which
would be confusing, right? Because that person's like assuming, like, wait a minute, you're not happy, because if you were happy, you would be acting differently in this relationship, right? And then a lot of times, I mean, maybe that person really didn't care until they've been broken up with, and now they care.
Right.
And I just had a caller recently that did a Skype with me who did that. He broke up with the person, he was fine, and then when they got broken up with, now all of a sudden they cared a lot.
Yeah, and we'll get into the reasons as to why an ex might take this approach of saying, I'm breaking up with you because it's really what you want and I know it, even though you won't say it. So we'll get into the reasons as to why this theme comes up. But I do want to just acknowledge that this is a really difficult type of breakup. Now, this is them displacing that responsibility of ending the relationship and putting it onto you, even if it's not really what you want.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because you're sitting here thinking, I've invested. This is something that I've wanted and dreamt about and have planned for the future with. And here you are saying that I don't really care, that I don't really want it. And you're voiceless because they've made the decision, and it's almost like, you know, what they say is concrete, and you feel like you can't fight back.
This is a confusing one. So leave comments if you had something like this happen.
Yeah. And it's frustrating because you want to be able to defend yourself, but you're defending yourself against their belief of what you think.
Yeah. And how do you prove or disprove somebody's belief? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So there can be several reasons as to why this theme comes up and why an ex will assume that you want the breakup, or say that they assume that you want the breakup. We've mentioned this one, but maybe they really are expressing that they are the ones that are feeling unloved, underappreciated, or even unseen.
Okay.
So this might be a way of saying, hey, listen, this really isn't working for me, actually, but I'm having trouble directly telling you, and so I'm going to switch it up and say that, you know, it seems like you're not investing in the way that I expected you to.
Yeah.
this is tough, and many of you get defensive from the get-go. As soon as I bring up or suggest this idea, maybe they aren't feeling, really appreciated. Mm-hmm. Many of you are like, well, I changed the tires in our car, or, I did this and that for them, and I really cared for them in these ways, and I showed up for every family event, and I was there for them during, their illness or whatever it is. You tell me all the ways and list all the ways that you did show up. But you guys have to understand that sometimes feelings aren't logical or rational.
Yeah.
Sometimes a person can have this feeling of being unappreciated and unloved despite all of your efforts. So what we're talking about today is something that goes a little bit deeper. Mm-hmm. This can be a feeling that has stemmed from earlier experiences that's popping up in this relationship, mm-hmm. even including childhood experiences.
Yes,
so it's
that's
not,
big.
It's not always all about you.
Yeah, for them, it could be that they were neglected in their childhood, so they're really sensitive to it. Mm-hmm. And so maybe they have expectations that some people might consider to be unreasonable. And when you don't meet them, they're like, well, you don't care. Mm-hmm. And you're like, So, because this is a confusing one, because it can happen in different types of situations. Like maybe they're saying you didn't care because you had more of an avoidant attachment style, mm-hmm. that you were a little bit more neglectful in the relationship. I'm working with a guy right now who typically had an anxious attachment style, but trying to overcompensate that in the relationship, he was avoidant, mm-hmm. because he was not wanting to come on too strong. But he wound up appearing like he didn't even care about this girl, which he really did. But he would push her away, try and make her feel second best, all in an effort to not come on too strong so she wouldn't leave him, even though he really wanted to be with her. Mm-hmm. So, and I think some of that may have been like toxic dating advice he had heard that made him get like that to overcompensate. Mm-hmm.
And you also have to consider that the way that you're showing love might not be the way that they receive love best. So you might be doing all of these practical things for your partner when all they really want is just a hug and to hear that you're going to stick around and that you love them. Mm-hmm. So it does make a difference in how you show love. I have a situation too that I'm going to share that I'll keep anonymous also, but this person was working really, really hard overtime to work on this business. He had every intention of continuing that relationship, eventually, becoming a family, so on and so forth. But he didn't share the goals and dreams and what he was working on. Mm-hmm. So all the partner saw was, wow, you're prioritizing work over me. Mm-hmm. Versus in his mind, he's thinking, I want to be a good provider for you. Mm-hmm. So this huge miscommunication ended their relationship ultimately. Mm-hmm. I think the lesson here is being able to communicate well, making sure your partner understands you, where you're coming from, your feelings, your desires, and that being, a shared experience.
So if you heard that, something along the lines of like, I don't feel cared about enough or whatever, you might look within yourself and think, wait a minute, was I avoidant in this relationship? Was I not stepping up and making them feel cared about enough? Was I neglecting them? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these are big questions that you want to ask yourself and really consider for yourself too. So another big reason why we hear this type of reasoning or breakup line is that they think that they're undeserving of relationships. This goes back to that childhood trauma, attachment wounds that we were just mentioning. Sometimes people have this schema, this way of looking at themselves and looking at the world, which says, I have to jump through hoops to get the love that I need. Or, no matter how hard I try, I'm still unlovable. So these are things that are personal that each individual has to work on in themselves, but they do show up in relationships all of the time.
Yep. It's really hard to understand those people too. You're just like, I don't understand. I just want to love you and you don't think you're deserving of love. It can be really confusing when you have a partner like that.
Yeah. And this type of wound also manifests in doubting that somebody can truly love you, mm-hmm. despite all of their efforts. And it's so hard because as a partner of somebody with this deep insecurity or deep wound, you can go above and beyond and they'll still be skeptical. They'll still be suspicious. They still won't receive the love. Because
on like some level, they feel like it's going to fall apart anyway. So, mm-hmm. so why keep trying if it's just going to end and it's going to fall apart and, I'm going to get hurt anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if you all have ever seen those memes where it's, people at an altar and it's like, well, we can get married if you want to or something like that. And the idea is, you can even get to the point where you're committed in a marriage and still have doubts if your partner really does care.
Yeah.
I know it's a funny meme, but if you really dissect it and overthink it like I do, then it becomes sad. That's how I love my memes. A little bit sad. So, because we do like to consider all of the possibilities, we also want to consider that sometimes these phrases or, oh, you don't really want this, or I gotta let this go because you deserve better, could be a way of deferring responsibility like we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So a way of saying, I can't be direct with saying I want the breakup.
Yeah.
But it can
That's
also
confusing. If you hear that, you're going to be like, what?
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff you have to do coachings with us, and we can get into these nitty gritty things, and it can be really confusing.
Yeah. And it can also be a way of warning you. Sometimes
people
are understanding of their own behavior in relationships.
That they know they're going to sabotage it.
They know that they have certain patterns in their life, be it infidelity, be it substance abuse, be it manipulation or lying to a partner, or even verbally abusing a partner, getting aggressive with them. Mm-hmm. They know this about themselves. And so they're preemptively saying, you know what, I'm going to take myself out of this situation to avoid hurting you and to avoid getting myself back into this trap.
Sometimes you'll hear them say something like, I'm not good in relationships. Mm-hmm. That one, they say it like that a lot. Mm-hmm. I'm not good in relationships. Oh boy. Yeah. They're going to sabotage it probably at some point.
Yeah. So keep your eyes open. You also want to look at patterns, how things have been, the length of time the two of you have been together. There's lots to consider in that case, but we do bring it up because sometimes that is the underlying meaning of that type of a statement. So, things to consider. Could also be a similarity to that southern, well, I'll let you go for now type of thing where you're kind of placing it on them that you want to leave, but you don't want to say the reason. It can be easier to say, oh, you want this, rather than stating and being vulnerable with your partner to say, hey, these things were really bothering me, or getting into all of that.
Yeah. These things can get confusing. Mm-hmm. This is definitely a more confusing topic because it's not coming from a place of being authentic. It's almost like projecting or, saying things that they're feeling, but they're saying you're feeling that way. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, because you're going to hear a lot of confusing things during breakups.
Oh, yeah.
And we hear them every day. We hear a lot of patterns. So sometimes it's not like they give you real reasons that make sense. They're saying these things and you're like, I don't understand this at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it can be confusing. And I think you're right. It does come down to authenticity and just direct communication. Hey, I'm not good in relationships because of XYZ. These are the patterns that I'm working on and working through, and I need you as a potential partner to understand this, to be able to consent in this relationship.
Yep.
Boom. So there's ways to communicate clearly, but it is hard, and it does take guts. It takes maturity. It takes vulnerability, which not everybody has.
Strangely enough, sometimes people will flat out tell you things, but you ignore it. You think you can maybe push them through it, or that they can get better at it. Like when people say, I'm not good in relationships. And you're like, oh, but we're doing so great right now. Well, because you don't know what's coming. And they're probably going to unconsciously sabotage. And next thing you know, you're like, what? What happened? Because you didn't listen to them. Like they say, people will tell you who they are. Believe them. Mm-hmm. Believe it. You have to. If you ignore because you have strong feelings for them, it's going to wind up hurting you.
Yeah. It's a tough situation. It really is. And it's important to remember through this that whatever somebody else is thinking that you're thinking, doesn't necessarily reflect what's actually true. I know
Yeah.
that's maybe a little bit hard to explain,
Yeah.
but just because your partner thinks that, you're uncaring or unloving, it doesn't mean that you actually are. This is why communication is so important. This is why it is important to also reflect on yourself. Man, I've been doing something that is showing my partner that I haven't really been there for them? And in what ways do they receive love? And what ways can I show them that I really am there for him? Sometimes we do get a second chance, and a relationship that gets rekindled and works out again, and sometimes we don't. But these are important things for our growth process.
Yeah, it's really healthy to try and take a step back and evaluate all aspects of the relationship. Your beliefs, you're thinking about your behavior, their beliefs about relationships, based on what you've heard. I mean, you obviously don't know what they think unless they say it. How they've behaved, look at patterns in your life, patterns in your relationships, maybe patterns in their life or relationship. Maybe at the start of the relationship, they told you, oh, I used to be bipolar, but I'm not anymore. I've heard that, right? And then you think, oh, they're not anymore because you don't understand mental health. But believe me, they're not just going to magically not be bipolar anymore.
Yeah.
And then you find out that they've been cheating on you for 3 days and spent $6,000 on a motorcycle, and and they got caught stealing from the gas station. I mean, all kinds of wild stuff.
Yeah. So you really do want to listen when your partner or date or potential partner is saying things about themselves and the way that they approach situations. It is something to consider. If your partner is breaking up with you and saying, oh, I'm breaking up with you because this is how I think you feel. Let's say that relationship would have continued. Would they also say, the moment that you're late to dinner, oh, you were purposefully late because I know you really don't care. You did this because you don't love me. Things can be taken to the next level and next extreme. And if they're already making assumptions about your thoughts, your feelings, it's really hard to connect then, because they are connecting with who they think you are rather than being curious and wondering, hearing from you.
Yes, it gets really confusing when somebody's saying this is how they think you are and you're maybe not feeling that way about it at all. It leaves you really just like, I don't understand what is going on here.
Yeah, and it's tough because you want to defend yourself. You want to say, no, I care. I wouldn't be here with you and trying and wanting to work this out if I didn't care. It can be so frustrating.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully this has cleared some stuff up.
Yeah, you might have to watch it again to understand the meta.
Yeah, this is kind of exploring some of the unconscious behavior people do, which can get tricky because we're not looking at a specific situation. If we were breaking down a specific email coaching, we might have been able to point out all along the way one particular person's behavior. But because we're saying it could come from these different kind of behaviors, like is it an avoidant person that really genuinely didn't show enough care, or is it an anxious person that was projecting that the avoidant didn't care? I mean, so it gets kind of confusing.
Yeah, it does. But we figured we would, talk about the situation. It's something that I've seen come up. And so watch this video, decipher for yourself if any of it is applicable in your situation. And we hope that it's been helpful.
And of course, that's what we're here for. If you want our help personally, you can do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. Victoria is available for Skype coaching.
I'm here whenever you'd like to chat.
Just click on her name at the top of the website to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.